Hey guys, welcome to another Six Sages Gaming Deck Spotlight. And today I have for you the Ultimecia Tap Out Control. So happy Brews Day for a really sweet control list. If you love freezing down your opponent's forwards and then bouncing them back to their hand and making them just lose all sorts of tempo, then this deck is absolutely the deck for you. You'll see that we're playing a lot of cards that focus on, again, either freezing your opponent's forwards, making sure they come into play dulled, and then we're using things like Laguna to be able to swing for 9k and then potentially deal 9k damage to one of their dulled forwards, which will virtually kill anything in the game unless they have a Maria or let's say a Golem or something to save it. So this deck is absolutely sick if you love the more grindy, slow control decks. And as our friend Joe from Joesephyr Gaming, again, check out his channel, showed us this past weekend, Ultimecia is absolutely a force to be reckoned with in the Earth deck with Brave, but we're going to see how the Ice Water Brew can add something special of its own. So first we're going to go into all the forwards, then we're going to talk about the summons, and lastly we're going to wrap it up with the backup. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, up first we have Sid Reigns. Now this is a card I haven't talked about a lot because it really does depend on what your meta is looking like. If you're seeing a lot of 2-cost Tifas or 4-drop Lightnings, anything that's in that 4,000 category, this is absolutely a sick follow-up to their turn 1. And with this deck, you always want to go second. I cannot stress that enough. You want to go second. So they play their turn 1 Tifa, you play a backup, and you go, hey, what? I have this 2-cost forward as well. And he's going to come in, kill your Tifa or 4-cost Lightning, and they're going to be forced to discard a card. Now, ultimately, he's really not that impressive as an aggressive card, but he is just a great answer to some early turn 1 plays your opponent might have. But again, if you don't see a lot of those fire decks in your local meta, then this is absolutely the first card that you're going to want to cut from the list. But when it's good, it is so good. Now, I don't know what any good ice control list would be without Squall himself. This card can just stop aggro decks in its tracks so often that whenever he blocks, he'll deal 6,000 damage to something else. And it's also important to note he's not terrible at attacking either because he'll often always trade up or threaten a 2-for-1. So in the late game, he's also great just for being able to put through some damage. But again, we need to slow the game down. We need to build up our board state a little bit, and Squall absolutely can do that for us. This is hands down one of my favorite more control-based cards in the game because when you need to, he can also be very good at going on the offensive. And plus his special that gives him first strike until end of turn absolutely can kill those forwards that get in your way that might be 9Ks. Moving on, we have Terra. Now this one is mostly fodder for the 4-drop, but this really depends on what your meta is looking like. What I really love about Terra is that her special is good on both cards, and we'll talk about the 4-drop here next, but it gives you the opportunity to say, you know, if I'm playing against an aggro deck or a control deck, I have a Terra that's going to be perfect for that situation. So in this case, we have the 3-drop. Their summons are going to cost 1 more. That is a great thing to have if they're playing stuff like Odin. And then she's also can be aggressive as well, much like Squall, but she does rely more on her special. Until end of turn, she gains plus 3,000 power and first strike. So again, you can trick your opponent into thinking that they're safe. Maybe she just needs to be a blocker. She can do a lot of great things for you. And then, of course, if they're playing the more aggressive decks, we have the 4-drop. When she comes into play, choose up to 2 all forwards, deal them 4,000 damage. And then, again, her special, you can chain it. So you play her, choose 2 forwards, chain with her special, then you'll then deal 8,000 damage to their forwards. Another interesting note that I'll put here is that this also combos very well with your Laguna because unless you're using a special, sometimes he won't be able to finish off your opponent's forwards that might be 9Ks because he only deals 7,000 damage. Terra gives you the opportunity to pay 1 more ice and get in that sweet 8,000 damage standpoint. So Terra is also great because she just works so well with Laguna, and that's something that I've usually missed in some other videos, but I absolutely wanted to point it out now. She can get that little bit extra damage. Then we're playing a couple 1-ofs. We play a 1-of 4-drop Squall. This is strictly for activating the 3-drop Squall special because you'll see we're not playing Devout or any ways to get him back. And then the other Laguna, again, this is strictly for playing Laguna's ability. Now, if you wanted to, if you're not playing, again, aggressive meta, if you were to cut Sid Reigns, I would absolutely add one more Squall and Laguna of these kinds to this list so you can use those specials more often. If you watch Joe's video, this card kind of... We've done enough talking about this card, but we'll stress it one more time. All forwards, other than her, come into play dulled. Now again, I want to stress, because we're playing the Ice variant, if you remember things like Terra, she doesn't care that she comes into play dulled. What she does care is that your opponent has some dulled forwards now, either because they attacked or because of her ability, and then you can deal 8,000 damage to them. So Ultimecia actually really sets this deck up very, very nicely. And the fact that she's a 9K and then we have access to Minwu, she can be put on defense pretty effectively and just sit there, and then her effect is all you need. And then kind of the king himself, I have so long been waiting for this card to be relevant, or this card to be good. And this is the first time, and I'm still going to say probably the only time, that this card is good in this deck. When you combine it with Ultimecia and you are constantly being able to clear the way for Laguna, you can constantly pick off their guys for 7,000 damage. Or if you play again Terra early, you can ping them for that last 8,000. Or even Desperado to choose a dull forward. Again, they're all coming to play dull. It's great. Deal 9,000 damage to something. So your opponent's going to go, great, I'm going to play this Prish, for example. It's going to come in the field dull, but that's okay. As soon as it recovers, I'll be able to give it Brave every turn, and it'll never dull again. And then you can attack the Laguna, kill something else, and then, you know what, I know you want to untap this, but boom, Desperado Prish, she's gone before you even have the chance to attack with her or recover her. So again, Laguna and Ultimecia are just an insane combo. And then lastly, I love my good one-ofs. You guys should know this by now. One of Cloud of Darkness. Again, this is great because your opponent's going to be having to play into the Ultimecia combo, or I should just say effect. So sometimes if you're getting behind, Ultimecia can buy you a couple turns. Then you can slam a Cloud of Darkness, keep your Ultimecia, and your opponent's going to be down to one guy again. And that can help swing the favor, or swing the game back in your favor. It's just absolutely critical to have. And then lastly, just because he's a good card and because it's 8,000 first strike helps out a ton against a lot of things. And again, we are playing Terra. She can ping something for 1,000 damage. Then you can block with Sephiroth and kill anything that's a 9K. So the little intricate things that this deck does like that is so critically important to understand that Sephiroth is just absolutely a must auto add 100%. He goes in this deck. This slot is non-negotiable. You get that Terra out, you have Sephiroth, you are walling off your opponent and they are not going to be able to stop you. And again, you'll see that we do have a more ice-heavy backup to accommodate for a lot of things that we're doing. So next we're going to talk about our summons. We're going to go into Ice. 3 Shivas. It's an EX burst, no questions asked. This card is just straight gas. They're going to come into play dull with Ultimecia. Then you get to play Shiva, you're going to dull it again, and then it's going to be frozen for another turn, and then you're going to play Jill, and it's going to be frozen for another turn. Or you have Time Mage, and then they're not going to be able to attack. This deck is all about grinding your opponent to a halt, freezing down their board, locking them down, and picking them off with Laguna. And Shiva absolutely does an insane job of that. Our interesting tech choice, or another one of, is Hades. Essentially, it dulls a forward, which again, it clears the way for Laguna, and it can bounce it back to their hand. If you see this card late game, it is usually going to be a complete blowout. Now, I had this as a 2 in some decks, and it was just, I always saw it too early, so I had to cut it to a 1. But think about it. Late game, you're in top deck mode, your opponent's running out of cards, you can dull one of their forwards, attack with Laguna, kill it, because they were trying to be defensive with it, and bounce one of their backups back to their hand. And even better, they have no cards in hand, so then they have to discard that backup. So now they're down a resource as well, and it's much harder for them to come back into that game. So Hades, if I'm playing these more slow, grindy control decks, it is absolutely going to be a 1-up in every single one I play. And then up next we have Leviathan. Oh, if you watched our duel series from yesterday, you will understand very quickly how crippling this card can be if it's a well-timed and you follow it up with Ultimecia. Pretty much Leviathan and 5-drop Yuta are the reason why I'm putting these two colors together and why I'm so excited to be playing it. You will just watch the will drain from your opponent as they get blown out by a Leviathan, and then they realize that, oh man, I have to now battle through Ultimecia, so now it's going to be 2 or 3 turns before I attack. It absolutely puts the pain on your opponent. Now, the one downside that we have compared to the Earth deck is we don't have a lot of Brave options, or forwards with Brave, I should specify, and Joesephyr, or Joseph, whatever that card's name is, guy from Final Fantasy 2, I believe. He's an option, but he's just not good enough for what we want to be doing in this deck. So Fairy comes in clutch with allow us to being able to attack, surprise ready a blocker. It does so much for the deck, and again, it's just an EX burst that if you watched our game yesterday, it can be just so pivotal in helping you bring back the tempo in the game. And the fact that it draws a card, absolutely nuts. Absolutely love this card. And when you have Yuna in play to make it a 1-drop, whew, it is so good. So now let's talk about our 2-drops. Time Mage. This has been just a favorite of mine. You'll see that we are playing a lot of 2 and 3 cost backups because we want to have all these sweet backups on board that have special effects. So we had to lower the curve drastically, and you'll see that there's just so much utility to have. In Time Mage, he's just a perfect fit. We're going to dull our opponents forwards, then we're going to freeze them, then Time Mages say that they can't attack with them. He absolutely will just make your opponent suffer and make sure they can't attack. And it's, again, just so strong to be able to dull out the game or draw out the game for you to come back and win. Yuna, again, I cannot stress how critically important this is. Reducing your water summons cost by 1. I realize that might not seem like it's that strong, but once you realize that you can pay 1 for Fairy and only 2 for Leviathan, I cannot stress how important that Leviathan going from 3 to 2 is. It is absolutely essential for this deck. Yuna, she's a 2-drop. She comes into play early, makes all your stuff forward. And the thing I love about Yuna, she is only going to get better as time goes on. I strongly feel that this is a deck that I'm going to be playing for a while. And knowing that there's more water summons coming and knowing that she's always going to be good because she's a 2-drop and reduces the cost of them, I'm so excited to be playing this card. It only bodes well for this deck. But really, Ultimecia's best girlfriend is Jill. No questions asked. Again, it's an EX burst. That's a great spot to be. But when she enters the field, choose up to 2 forwards and freeze them. So again, Ultimecia says, hey man, all your stuff's going to come into play adult. So let's say your opponent plays 2 forwards. You're like, okay, I'll hold on to this for a bit. Now again, I want to stress, Jill is a card you need to sandbag. Goes back to your turn. This is probably like turn 4 or 5 or 6 in the game now. And you go, okay, those 2 guys came into play adult. That's cute. I'm going to play Jill. Now they're frozen. Now they're going to be dull for a whole nother turn. And that gives you so much time to set up and do everything that you need to do. So again, I knew Jill was going to be great from the start. And it just has been absolutely pivotal in every single ice deck. So again, if you are playing ice, you are playing 3 of this card. No questions asked. Another card I'm super excited for, and I wish I could have found room for a 3rd, and I will say, don't hate me, I will probably end up cutting a Minwu from this list for a 3rd Summoner. Why? Summoner gives you the option to cancel one of your opponent's summons. If you're going against a Lightning Control deck, if you can cancel their 7-cost Odin, or even just keep this on board to threaten canceling it, because it taps and pays for itself, this card is so bloody important in the more mid-rangey control mirrors that it'll often win the game on the spot for the summon that it cancels or puts into the break zone. Again, you're going to lose a backup because of it, but the way we design this deck, you're going to be playing a bunch of backups early, accelerate your resource, and then have Summoner to just be able to cancel that pivotal summon in that game that says, no, you're not winning, this game is mine, and this card is great. And again, I can't stress enough, this is the key in saving your Ultimecia or Laguna, whichever one they're trying to get rid of, because those 2 cards are going to be winning you the game in this deck. So Summoner is absolutely important. And I did just mention him, and I'll say why I put him at 3 originally. Depending on what your meta is going to look like, let's say there's not a lot of Lightning, or there's not a lot of relevant summons being played, then absolutely you want 3 Minwu. So this is where it, again, comes down to your meta, comes down to what people are playing, because 3 Minwu does so much for this deck, because again, Laguna is a 9k, Ultimecia is a 9k. The fact that she can wall off so many things is going to be essential for being able to hold off those aggressive decks. Or maybe they're trying to play Brynhildr and they can't, 2 for 1 themselves to try to remove your Ultimecia. He just adds such a insane level of protection for your deck that is absolutely a 3 of, depending on your meta. So again, it's a 2 or a 3 of. I'm convinced that it's a 3 of because I'm not seeing a lot of Lightning locally, so I might be biased in that. But if you're seeing a lot of Lightning, run 3 Summoner. If you're seeing a lot of everything else, run 3 Minwu. That is what it comes down to. But I absolutely just love Summoner and probably will switch that shortly after this. But it really is a toss-up either way. And then a card that I really haven't been a big fan of, but is absolutely a wonderful thing, is that you have 3 Orin, and he can just tap down your opponent's field and does a lot of things to help you stay in the game. So again, he dulls all your forwards. It costs a lot. So again, this is one of those cards that you're not going to be using that often, but when you do, it can help dull the game a couple more turns. And then lastly, we have 2 of the 5-drop Yuna. This is really just Leviathan 4 and 5. You almost never want to be playing this or putting it into the field, but I do think it's worth including just for the bounce effect. And let's say that they're in the off chance that they're playing something like the Emperor or Golbez, it absolutely just stops that combo as well. So again, guys, I hope you like this video. Again, Ultimecia tap control can do some really disgusting things, and I hope you'll give this a try. Of course, we appreciate all your likes, comments, subscriptions, all that good stuff, and let me know what you think about the list. Let me know if there's any changes that you would make, or if there's any cards that I might have looked over. I will say I considered Devout in this deck, and I just didn't have room for some of the other things that I thought would be more important. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But if I was going to cut anything for Devouts, it would probably be something like Orin, because his effect is so expensive, and dulling it might not always do enough for you. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you on the next 6 Sages Gaming Deck Spotlight. Have a good one.